Remember when you were a kid and everything about the future was supposed to be jolly exciting, right? But somehow I never imagined the future to look like the Volkswagen ID.4, the future of family transportation today.
What is the ID.4? It's an electric SUV, or rather a glorified station wagon. Its dimensions place it between the Tiguan and the Tiguan Allspace. It's about the size of the Hyundai Tucson, but with almost 10 cm longer wheelbase. At 458 cm in length, the ID.4 has 277 cm wheelbase. The ID.4 is VW's second completely new EV after the ID.3 compact hatch. The ID models are built on the new MEB platform, which was designed with the electric powertrains in mind. It allows for motors to be located on one or both axles, and between the axles is the place for batteries. The longer the wheelbase, the more batteries can be placed between the axles. This allows for greater range, albeit up to a certain point, as extra weight also influences range and handling.
The ID.4 has 16 cm ground clearance, which is 1 cm less than the Hyundai Tucson and almost 1.5 cm less than the Passat Alltrack. However, the electric VW is 2 cm lower than the Tucson. When you open the door, everything becomes clear, as the floor where you actually sit is around 45 cm above the ground. So the batteries as well as the floor are almost 30 cm thick, and the driving position is more like in a regular sedan or estate than in an SUV. Hence, a glorified station wagon it is.
However, thanks to the new platform, not just batteries fit in the floor, but also at least part of the electric motor. And this means more space inside for passengers and luggage. The boot capacity is just shy of 550 liters, that's less than the official boot volume figure for the Tucson, but my calculations suggest the Tucson's boot takes into account at least the spare tire well. And in the ID.4, what you see is what you get. With the rear seats folded, there is 1575 liters of cargo space. The ID.4 boot has a regular shape. Under the double floor is one more cavity to store, for example, charging cables. I'd rather see a frunk, but we can't have everything. There are shopping bag hooks and a 12-volt socket. The boot can be opened and closed with gesture or with a button on the tailgate. There are also sensors which prevent the lid from closing when you're underneath it.
Something I notice in the parking lot is the shape of the tail lamps and the placement of the indicators. As I leave the car and close it with a remote control, I often don't hear the locks because it's loud in the parking lot. So I often look if the indicators blinked or not. The problem is that the indicators are placed quite low, so I have to lean to see them. Sure, the mirrors fold and all that, but in a tight parking lot, I don't see the mirrors.
In the back, there is plenty of legroom behind the driver's seat set to my driving position. I'm 175 centimeters tall. Headroom is average at best because of the batteries in the floor. There are large door pockets, an armrest with cup holders, as well as a ski hatch. In the middle, you'll find air vents and third zone climate controls, and 2 USB-C ports. I'm not a fan of the brown and grey upholstery combination, and the piano black plastic on the doors seems a bad idea. Also, the reading lights are located close to an average height passenger's temples, so they are blinding even on a sunny day.
The cockpit layout is very similar to that in the smaller ID.3. There is a tiny display in front of the driver and a large infotainment display in the center. Under the larger display, there are touch controls for the AC and volume, as well as some buttons to access the car's basic functions. Lower is the center console with cup holders, a phone cubby, and some sort of storage here which you can close, and there are removable dividers which can act as cup holders as well. The seats have individual adjustable armrests. The glove box is average size, but the door pockets are big enough to accommodate a hippo.
A brief rant about the infotainment system. For years I considered the VW infotainment systems the best in the game, a benchmark for other car makers. I felt the interface was a logical combination of physical buttons and touchscreen menus. Those days are long gone. VW is now all about digital, and I literally had to ask my partner to change settings for me because I had no idea how to operate this mess. We even had to phone VW to help us find some settings. Unfortunately, press cars often don't come with a paper version of the user guide. Never mind that the infotainment system tends to lag. At least this one hasn't crashed on me. However, I like that there is wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
Also, who thought it's better to have 3 buttons to control 4 windows in a car? I'm still waiting for VW to give me an official answer about that. Like in a Tesla, also in the electric VWs, you don't need to start the car, although there is a starter button. All you need to do is get in with a key and select drive.
The ID.4 is an EV, so here comes the segment about the range. I'm sorry if you're a seasoned EV driver and some of the following may be obvious to you. Some of my viewers are yet to learn about EVs.
Instead of the fuel tank volume, here we have battery capacity expressed in kilowatt hours, and the energy consumption is expressed in kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers on the old continent. Don't ask me about the miles per kilowatt hour. I'm sure there is an online calculator somewhere. The ID.4 can be ordered with 52 or 77 kilowatt hour batteries. The range is up to 346 for the smaller batteries and up to 523 kilometers for the bigger capacity batteries.
Power is 148 or 170 horsepower for the smaller batteries and 204 horsepower for the larger batteries. At the moment, there is only the rear-wheel drive model, but the all-wheel drive 300 horsepower GTX is expected soon. It's going to be quicker, faster, but it's also got less range than the 204 horsepower rear-wheel drive model. This is the 204 horsepower 77 kWh model. Is the range really 500 kilometers? The energy consumption would have to be below 15 kWh per 100 kilometers. The problem is that even VW says the ID.4 uses more than 17 kWh per 100 kilometers.
However, you can recoup some range thanks to regenerative braking. In layman's terms, every time you let off the accelerator pedal or you start braking, free energy is going back into the batteries. If you can judge the situation on the road, judge the distance to your next obstacle, take the foot off the accelerator early enough to take full advantage of regenerative braking, you may even go further than VW claims.
Of course, there are other factors to take into account. EVs are particularly sensitive to speed and low temperature. I drove the ID.4 around town and in extra-urban scenarios. When the temperature was close to zero, I averaged more than 26 kWh per 100 kilometers. However, around plus 10 degrees Celsius, I got 18 kWh. On warm days, 450-500 kilometers in the city is realistic.
As far as speed is concerned, the ID.4 uses high 20-something kWh per 100 kilometers on the motorway. Leave the motorway and the energy consumption quickly drops to levels closer to what VW promises.
This ID.4 has the top speed limited to 160 km per hour. The GTX can go even up to 180, but driving this fast, you're not going to get very far. In order to get to this filming location, I had to drive around 200 kilometers, which took exactly 2 hours, as Google Maps indicated. At dawn, it was around 10-12 degrees Celsius, and I got below 24 kWh per 100 kilometers, with the average speed exceeding 100 km per hour. At least half of this leg of the journey involved going up a gradual incline. Going back, I was able to go even faster, and the energy use was around 20 kWh per 100 kilometers, with temperature outside around 25 degrees Celsius. VW claims the ID.4 with 77 kWh batteries accelerates from 0 to 100 km per hour in 8.5 seconds. I checked, and this is accurate.
On the motorway, the travel assist works great. That's a combination of adaptive cruise control and active lane keeping assist. The car slows down and accelerates to set speed, taking into account slower vehicles in front. So that's great. Then there's the traffic sign recognition actually, and the system can automatically adjust the cruise control speed, but I decided to turn it off because adjusting to the speed limit, because on Polish roads, sudden deceleration to a lower speed limit leaves some tailgating champions struggling for traction in the back.
The ID.4 also gently slows down while recouping some energy as it approaches junctions, speed limits, slower vehicles in front, or other obstacles. A side effect is weak brake pedal feel. It's not terrible, but I noticed that sometimes it takes a while for the actual brakes to bite.
Driving impressions. Well, let's just say that you want to use the travel assist as often as possible. This car is not about ride and handling, it's about comfortable getting from A to B.
An interesting feature is the Augmented Reality head-up display. Besides the normal information like speed and speed limit, you can also see dynamic signs from the driver aids as well as navigation. So instead of a regular arrow showing you it's time to turn, you see the arrow above the actual turn and it gets bigger as you approach it. When I first heard about this Augmented Reality feature, I expected something more.
I have a feeling the VW PR also expected a bit more, but as the ID.3 was delayed all the time, the augmented reality feature was downplayed a bit. But the soundproofing is phenomenal. The car is also pretty good at masking the fact it weighs more than 2 tons. Unfortunately, visibility is pretty bad, especially here around the thick A-pillars and the big wing mirrors. After a couple of hours, I learned that I have to behave like a chicken, just to see if there's anything behind it. During a test drive, make sure it's okay for you, because maybe it's just my sitting position, maybe I'm sitting too low, too high. Check it out for yourself.
Prices of the Volkswagen ID.4 start at €37,000 for the pure 52 kWh 148 horsepower model. This test example is the sold-out first edition with 77 kWh batteries. A comparably spec'd Pro Performance Tech model costs about €55,000.
After the somewhat half-baked ID.3, the larger ID.4 with higher capacity batteries seems like a much better proposition. It's more expensive than the ID.3, granted, but in terms of function, the ID.4 is like the Mercedes-Benz EQC, from which it has better real-life range. It's far from perfect, but it's a good try for an electric car. And how do you like the VW ID.4? Would you consider it over the ID.3, or maybe you have another EV on your radar? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.